Have you guys seen the discourse about the clanker slur? I saw some TikToks, man. It's so gross, Lamau. If you want to say slurs so badly, you have to just say the slurs, like the real ones. I don't understand what the joke is. The whole internet, like, okay, a firestorm took root and spread across the entire internet, and the joke that was that firestorm was, what if we said clanker as a slur against robots? But the problem is they forgot to put the joke in the joke. It's from Star Wars? Yeah, who cares? That's not what we're talking about. What does that have to do with what we're talking about? There's no joke in the joke.
Can I get started for you today?
POV, you're a clanker in 2050.
Oh, well. Look what the Roomba dragged in. Didn't you see the sign outside? We don't serve clankers here. Can't you read? What are you two called? Nuts and bolts?
Do we want peasant brain AI hate, though? But it's not peasant brain AI hate. It's just people wanting to affect the behaviors and speech patterns of actual racists without actually committing to it. Is this supposed to be funny? I guess it's very funny to some people. If, like, the comedy element is racist. Again, I don't want to be one of those, like, 2015 man-spreading on the subway millennial anti-fun types or whatever, but, like, a racist joke has to have a joke along with the racism. It can't just be racism. The joke can't be racism. The joke has to be a joke. You can make a racist joke. I don't give a shit, man, but it has to have a joke in it.
We only serve human food here, wirebacks. We don't have
Wirebacks?
none of your oil or microchips or whatever it is you rust buckets eat.
Sorry, we're fresh out of AAA batteries, tin skins, so why don't you get lost?
You heard him. So unless you can talk some sense into our broken waffle maker, we're gonna have to ask you to leave. You wouldn't want me to get the spray bottle, or maybe you'd like a nice helping of malware, huh? Would you like that? Go on, get back to Dataville.
I think this one's worse.
Bathroom. I guess I gotta teach you a lesson now. Oil brush. Robots are humans too. Okay, Buckethead. Then how many stop signs are in this photograph? That's what
That one's funny. I like that one.
I thought. Tin skin. Whoa, look everyone. It's Jamal 3000. What's the matter,
Jamal 3000. Is that what we're calling robots in the future?
Jamal 3000? All out of henny oil? Come on, fellas. We don't hang out with wirebacks. A new friend?
That's not even the right analog slur for somebody who would be called Jamal 3000 drinking henny oil. Wait a second. I think there might be some regular racism encoded in this sci-fi racism. Possibly. I don't know, man. Holy shit, these just want to say the N-word. I mean, there's a reason why clankers took off, right? And then you see people making, like, clankas jokes. We owe Detroit Become Human an apology. That's true. We do owe David Cage an apology. That game actually ended up being more subtle and prescient than we ever could have predicted. RoboSlur tier list, real drama? Dog, it's not drama. It's not drama, man. It's talking about shit. It's commentary. It's thinking. You have to think, okay? You have to use your head. Don't let this distract you from the fact that it's derived from Star Wars. Dog, it doesn't matter. A fuck ton of the words you used are derived from Shakespeare plays, okay? It's not what we're talking about. I feel like a lot of people get into racism online because it's punchy. I don't think anyone is saying clanker is saying it as a substitute for real slur. Oh, this is what I get for talking about news nonstop for like 3 years. This is what I get. Okay, are you familiar with the concept of subtext? Like, as an idea. It's not that when a person says clanker as like an internet joke, they're thinking about, like, I don't know, being racist against black people. That's not the point. That's not what's being said. Rather, it's that one of the reasons people become bigots, like actual bigots in real life with real people, is because there's a punchiness and catharsis to performative hatred against perceived marginalized groups, or just the other. We are biologically hardwired to differentiate between in-groups and out-groups. It's literally tribalism. It's the same reason why people will get into sports, and then, because it's easy and fun and convenient, get really into, like, shit-talking an opposing team. You know, like you have people, there are like intercity rivalries where people will jump in on it. Like they'll get into the sport, you know, a year ago, never having even been to the other city, but then they'll hate that city. They'll hate it. They'll have strong opinions about it, you know? As someone who has a robotic avatar in basically every game I play, the number of people who are unironically comfortable saying clanker despite its racist subtext is shocking. Yeah, well, that's my point, basically. I think that a lot of people kind of bought in on the allure of the aesthetic and the punch of being bigoted. It's pretty in vogue these days, but it's just like a funny meme target. The problem is, I think that like the game is given away by the fact that for the vast majority of people doing it, there's no joke. Like, there has to be a joke for it to be funny. So if you're just doing it on its own, it's not a bigoted thing if it satirizes slurs. It doesn't satirize slurs, and you're not that clever. It doesn't matter if you make racist jokes, it matters if it's funny. Yeah, but it has to be funny, which is the issue. I thought you were bigoted against AI. Gonna be real with you guys, the people who are making clanker jokes are also the ones using ChatGPT. If you seriously... Jesus. Okay, hold on. If you seriously think there's some kind of, like, authentic, principled, anti-AI stance coded in 14-year-olds going online and saying, I hate clankers, 13%, despite making up 13% of the workforce, clankers make up 50% of the workforce accidents. If you think that's satire, or like there's some kind of like authentic, principled humanitarian spirit encoded in these bits of comedic wisdom, I think you're kind of being taken for a ride a little bit, you know? Also, yeah, if the joke was that you're being racist against AI or like AI robots or whatever, doesn't that kind of like implicitly suggest that the AI robots are people? Because when you're racist to people, the people are people. So if you were racist against AI, that would imply the AI is people. You're kind of like seeding the argument there. I'm not racist against AI. I just hate it. Maybe you're overthinking this. I think you're underthinking it personally. It's not that I think you're being defensive, in my opinion, a little bit, you know? You really don't think there might be any, like, social subtext whatsoever to a sudden, like, epic internet meme, which is essentially just replicating real slurs in fake sci-fi language and then using them, like, performatively online? Like, this is the thing you think has no political subtext? It feels so forced. It would feel better if it was funny. The language guy on YouTube agrees. Is this the guy with the nerdy
If you want to
voice?
understand why the word
Yes. Hold on, wait. This guy's got a big noggin. Hold on. We'll get his take.
clanker is currently trending as a slur for robot, I think it's best explained through the philosopher Jacques Derrida's concept of différance. According to Derrida, meaning is never inherent in a word, but instead emerges in relation to other words. So the fact that we had more neutral terms like robot and AI, but then started using this new negative word implicitly gives clanker a sort of pejorative power. It's also important that we adopted that term from the Star Wars fandom community. Other franchises also had negative slurs for robots, like Toaster in Battlestar Galactica or Skin Job in Blade Runner. Clanker, however, was different because its usage was more intuitive and flexible. It additionally already had an entire life as a joke on the prequel meme subreddit, so contained what Derrida would call the traces of previous ironic
Clanker also does sound like the N-word, which probably helps.
usage, making it more easily adopted into memes today. It's also incredibly clear that clanker spread through analogy with the N-word, meaning that part of its power emerged from deferral to an actual dehumanizing slur. And that imbued negativity is certainly echoed from how the prequel meme subreddit was using the joke as early as 2020. All of this together now creates an opposition to concepts like human and living creature, which perpetuates a hierarchy of exclusion similar to man versus woman or citizen versus foreigner. Clanker invokes that binary contrast to being sentient, in turn creating a violent framework from which we can legitimize our cultural distaste for artificial intelligence.
I think he's overthinking it. I will say, though, I actually disagree with him on the final conclusion there. I don't actually think it has anything to do with artificial intelligence. I think that when I see people who are super anti-AI, I usually see people on social media who are like artists or who are, you know, like they're, you know, sort of in the creative space, or they're progressive and they hate what it's doing. Like they're just, or like they're posters, you know? They hate how inauthentic it is. They hate how inhuman it is. The people, like the clanker memes, are not coming from that community of people. That is not the group of people who are running around saying it everywhere. I think he's thinking like a sci-fi thing. Well, I don't know when this video came out. How do you see it with a short? Can you see in the comments? Does that show it? This is actually the video I meant to say. He has 2 videos.
One of the weirdest things about you guys using clanker as a slur is that you're trying to dehumanize robots, but at the same time you're paradoxically humanizing them. I mean, think about it. We have plenty of derogatory terms for non-humans, like mongrel for dog or vermin for wild animals. And yet nobody would say that those are slurs, even though we do generally agree that clanker is a slur. And that's because the idea of a slur requires a high degree of anthropomorphization in order to work. It's meant to insult a people group, so you first have to elevate the robot to near personhood before you can put it down. This is literally reflected in how clanker draws its power from analogy to the actual N-word, or how the similar term wireback comes from the slur for Mexican people. That implicitly places clanker on an equal footing with a human minority you don't like, which is already weird in and of itself. But now consider the alternative phrase cogsucker, which is also trending. That's clearly meant to be insulting, but it's not a slur because it doesn't equate itself with a specific kind of person. Same with the terms mongrel or vermin. They're demeaning to animals, but they don't claim to be slurs. So what you're actually doing with clanker is you're personifying AI just enough to treat it as subhuman. And I recognize that it's supposed to be a joke, but the more we mentally legitimize artificial intelligence as human, even subconsciously, the easier it is to believe in misinformation or fall into a loop of AI psychosis.
I think he's overthinking it. Isn't cogsucker supposed to be homophobic? It's always an analog to something that already exists, you know? Nothing else takes off. Okay, but can I call people using AI cogsuckers? Sure, if you want to be, like, corny. I'm curious whether you feel the same about carrying as a slur and you say you should use it. I'm not saying you can't say clanker, dog. I'm just saying this shit's super unfunny and weird. Is it illegal for me to say that? That's all I'm saying, man. You can do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. You know what? A ton of people who say Karen are unfunny as shit, too. Every time there's a woman on here complaining, somebody in chat's like, that's a Karen. And you're being sexist. Sometimes it's just like a regular lady having a bad day or something. Oh, Karen. Like, yeah, you're sexist, man. You can put, like, there are people who fit the mark, but you're just you're running around with a stamp trying to mark everything, you know? I'm not saying you can't say clanker. You're legally allowed to. I just think that I just think that, like, it is weird that people will pretend that it has nothing to do with the signifiers of actual racism when clanker and wireback are like the two used most often. Like, what are we talking about here? Come on. This is similar to the human supremacist meme where people are being weirdly racist with their Helldiver, Imperial Guard, Starship Trooper memes. Perfect example, Posadas John. Perfect example. Yeah, 100%. Sci-fi communities will often have people who get really, really into the joyful performative glee of being really bigoted against a fantasy group that allows them to imitate the mannerisms of racists in real life, you know? The 40K community is famous for it, but yeah, in the case of Helldivers, you get it like pretty clear cut. You have human supremacists, you know, over the bug things or whatever, but then they talk the way real racists do. Wait, shit, actually? Yes! Haven't you seen any of this? And it's all a joke in the context of the universe. But if you haven't noticed, there's some kind of overlap between people who glorify the aesthetics of bigotry in, say, I don't know, 40K, and then go on to imitate it in real life. You have not been online long enough, my friend. Not even remotely long enough. That shit is common. You're leading this ad absurdum? That's not what ad absurdum means. Even joking patriotism is bad then? It can be. Totally depends, yeah. Dude, fake patriotism from like a video game or whatever. Again, you can Helldivers this or the Imperium in 40K. People will do that shit and then they'll like get into actual bigotry. People don't become racists because they have principled positions, right? People become racist because of like emotional biases that take over. It's not a rational position. No racist has ever been shown a data sheet and gone, oh, and then stopped. It never works that way. It's because you develop these emotional patterns in your brain, the firing off the reward centers that make you feel good because you're engaging with the tribalist instinct that's hardwired in our heads. That tribalist instinct, by the way, can manifest along a bunch of different lines, right? Nationalism, race, ethnicity, religion, but also sports teams. People, and this is crazy to think about, people kill each other over sports rivalries. Like, people will be born in a city with a sports team and get into fights and die over whose team is better with their rival city. It has nothing to do with whether or not there's like a reality supporting the legitimacy of their bigotry. People do it anyway. Sports hooligans in the UK, soccer fans all around the world are like this to, not all of them, you know, of course, it's a small minority of them, but like it happens. Like, yeah, obviously, if people can get that worked up over a sports game, you think people can't kind of like sort of synchronize an aesthetic bias towards bigotry as shown in a media franchise with bigotry in real life? I'm not saying it's illegal to play 40K and go ooh-rah, the Tau, okay? You're allowed, you're legally allowed. It's just something you gotta think about, you know? People get so defensive when you say, hey, think about it, you know? You say, hey, as is the case with everything in life, you know? Moderation is key. There are some elements of this that, if over-engaged with, might be bad for you, especially if you don't think about it. Especially if you, like, defensively refuse to think about it. And people will be like, you want to make it illegal to do X thing. No, buddy. So what should people walk away from that? Look, I just think that, like, okay, how do you think it might feel for a black person online to see a bunch of white teenagers go, clanker, clanker, you're a clanker. Yeah, oh, clanka, my clanka, Jamal 3000, shine my shoes. How do you think it might feel for them? Just ballpark it in your head. And not just how it might feel for them, but like, do you think there's some legitimate concern on their end? I think there might be, right? Like, I think you could reason out from their perspective, like, there might be some kind of, you know, parallel here that's being drawn. The TikTok's really bad. Dog, I've seen like a ton of people post just like this shit all the time. Like, all the time, man. It's crazy. Okay, I'm gonna try to do this like in a different direction, okay? Imagine if there was a sci-fi universe that was super popular, and you have men and women, and then there's like a third type of person. We'll say they're like sex bots, okay? And the sex bots are always women. They're always women. They're always treated as feminine. They're shown as women, and they're basically like constantly raped and abused. And in the universe, everyone is really bigoted towards them and views them basically as objects, even though they have sapience, okay? And people develop a bunch of, like, in the sci-fi fiction, a bunch of terminology for them that is basically just like a displacement of existing sexism onto those sex bots. Like, the terminology, the way they're treated, it feels like a hyper, like an exaggeration of the, like, existing misogynistic tendencies towards women, you know what I mean? And like, the fans of this media franchise get super, super into it, and all they want to talk about is like raping their femoid or whatever. Do you think like a woman might sort of see that evolving tendency and go like, I wonder if there's something to worry about here? I'm slightly concerned about like the developing tendency here. This analogy sucks. I think it's basically 1-to-1, isn't it? I mean, you're transplanting like an existing racist dynamic wire back. Seriously, you're transplanting an existing racist dynamic onto like a fantasy or a sci-fi something, you know? And you got to see like, well, okay, listen, maybe, you know, a lot of people aren't going to go out there and start screaming actual slurs, but if they can engage with stuff like that, it gives them the same kind of. I think people are having a hard time separating out the narrative from the context of the meme. That's what I get for covering news for multiple years. Nothing but news. Nothing but news, man. A bunch of people coming in thinking they understand politics because they got like a guy reading off the headlines of AP news articles. You know, I get it. I understand. Unfortunately, rationality is a process, not an attribute, you know? You have to critically engage with this, even the stupid shit like this. In fact, the stupid shit is what you have to engage with the hardest. The smarty pants shit is self-evidently deserving of engagement, you know? Someone pitches you a fancy-pantsy op-ed written for at a collegiate level, and you're like, okay, well, if I'm going to read this, I'm going to have to take it seriously. It's the dumb shit like this that ends up manifesting in culture much more perniciously. We're still living in a post-Gamergate world. It's difficult to imagine, but it still feels like, and I think it's true, basically the entire global political dynamic was, if not shaped, at the very least, like, informed and instigated by an internet movement of, like, we're upset that a lady reviewed a game but knew the guy, the guy reviewed the game but knew the lady. Women are always using their pussies to get game reviews for free, for their free games. Women are always using their pussies to get favorable coverage in a list of a bunch of indie games for a game that they're selling for free. And that's why we have Trump today, okay? You gotta engage. I hate that we have to be so online to engage with stuff like this. I'm gonna be real with you. I think that if you went up to a normal person and you were like, hey, I came up with these funny terms for robots that are like insults for the robots, clankers and wirebacks, they would look at you and go like, why? Like, I don't think you have to be super online to engage with it. Actually, I think you have to be super online to be lured in by it, if anything. Like, I think for normal people, they'd be like, but that's just existing slurs. And it's only if you're very online, you're like, no. Actually, there's like content, you know? Unless they're Star Wars fans. Yeah, but as said in the YouTube short, like in the Star Wars community, they were already making jokes acknowledging the fact that clanker was semantically analogous to the N-word. They were already doing that. I guarantee you, if you went onto the prequel meme subreddit, you could find a bunch of posts where the joke is Clanker versus Clanka. Guarantee it. 100%. I've never been to that subreddit. I'm going to call it. I'm saying it. It's true. I guess my thing is that why would it be cathartic or pleasurable to even say that in a gaming context? Wait, it was kind of cute? Yeah, but it's not about whether it was cute. It was about whether it was relevant, Thana. Shouldn't you know that? Dude, being like fantasy racist is obviously fun because tribalism is fun. It's hard-coded. It's fun to have like an opposing group, you know? The problem is that people will... Oh, Freerin! The answer was right in front of me all along. People love in-groups and out-groups. We are hardwired that way. Humans will always be like that, okay? However, people love to transplant the satisfaction of those in-group, out-group dynamics in media onto real life. Perfect example. Racist Freerin fans using the demons in that show as an allegory for different races of people, which they're very fond of doing. Like, very, very, very fond of doing. Like, Freerin is at risk of, in the long run, turning into... what's the anime with the 4 girls in high school? Later it's 5 girls, and they play music? K-On! Yeah. It's at risk of turning into K-On! Long term, unless, like, real work is done to excavate that community. You know? The demons in Freerin are not persons. They're, how do I put it? They don't have, like, meaningful, independent, sentient thought. They're just predators to living things. They're predators to humans, and the way they lure in humans is by imitating them. They mimic speech and thought, but they don't have any independent, like, they're innately evil. They're magical creatures. They are not like a species of people. They are magic, and they lure living things, humans, dwarves, whatever, with the ability to mimic things like love or humanity or whatever. Like, evil's a strong word. No. They're objectively evil. They only want to hurt and kill people. That's the only thing they want. They're not like persons, you know? Yeah, they are philosophical zombies. I think there's a part in the anime where one of them is making a bid for sympathy by talking about the way like how he respects his father. And then later, when they're walking, having convinced the human to let them into the city, another demon is like, "What's a father?" And the one who spoke first said, "I don't know." Like, they don't know what they're doing. They don't think. They're just predators. They're monsters. Anyway, they're not at all like humans, except for in appearance. And the fan base of Freerin, or at least the right-wing fan base, is very fond of going like, see this group that has no feelings and no family ties and no connections to humanity? This is just like Mexicans. It's totally insane, but like they do it all the time. They use the existence of an objectively evil group of people in Freerin as like an allegory for the incompatibility of different races. It's totally irrational, but the reason why that happens is because in Freerin, the main character, Freerin, is very anti-demon. She's the demon slayer. She's killed a bajillion of them, right? And they see her hatred against a group of people, and they like it. They like the catharsis. They like the fire, the sort of zeal of having that hatred. And then because they were already racist against other groups of people in real life, they transpose it, thus creating an untenable analogy. But the truth of the analogy isn't in whether or not Mexicans are like the demons in Freerin. It's about whether or not they're an undeserving outgroup, which to these people, they are. Does that make sense? That's an example of how, like, irrational fantasy racism can have a relationship to actual racism, even though there's literally no parallel there. Okay, but should we treat satire with the merits of how mentally ill people perceive it? Akmarin7, you don't need to be defensive. I'm not telling you to not enjoy Freerin. I'm not telling you to not say Clanker or whatever. I'm literally just encouraging you to think about this stuff, okay? I can tell when a question is being posited out of a sort of defensive position, you know? You don't need that. We're not fighting! We don't need to fight! It's the same as the some soccer fans kill each other argument. Yeah, but the reason some soccer fans kill each other is because of an underlying human tendency that can be reaffirmed even in irrational circumstances. Like, that's the point. When I say some soccer fans kill each other, I'm not then following it up with, therefore, you can't say Clanker online. What I'm saying is, remember, sports fans will kill each other over their rivalries. Bigotry isn't rational, you should understand there's a relationship between the aesthetics of fantasy bigotry and the aesthetics of real bigotry, and there's a reason for it. You're trying to scratch the same itch. To racists, the orcs in Lord of the Rings are probably immigrants. Well, I mean, J.R.R. Tolkien did write them as with, like, what, like mongoloid features or something? So, you know, that might be a little textual. Vosh, is there any point in us trying to provide another perspective, or is this just a lecture stream? You guys are so defensive! Oh my god! For one, yeah, I'm the streamer. What do you mean, is this a lecture stream? Do you see anyone else here? What are you talking about? Oh my god, it's the news. I'm telling you, it's too many news segments. Yes, I am the guy up here. Again, dude, I'm literally just talking about tribalism. It's why is chat being so cunty? Dude, some people get so defensive when you talk about how like fantasy and sci-fi media takes from existing racial dynamics and might have like commentary on that. Like genuinely, there are people out there who will get mad at you if you point out that there are a bunch of racialized depictions of orcs in fantasy media, starting with, if you want to go back there, J.R.R. Tolkien describing them as having like Mongolian features, you know, like it's people will get like really bad. Like they will play World of Warcraft where all the trolls talk like this, man, and all of the pandas are like ancient Chinese taekwondo, fuck, you know, whatever masters. They'll do like, you'll have like the fantasy races everywhere, and you'll be like, hey, I think there's something to this, you know, and they'll say, no, you're being woke, you're being SJW. What's the Chinese martial art again? It's kung fu, right? Karate is Japanese, kung fu is Chinese. Where's taekwondo from? Korea? Okay, gotcha. I was thinking Thailand for some reason. All right, that's Muay Thai. Okay, well, I guess that makes sense based on the name. Let's try to summarize the point. People making those vids kind of enjoy the opportunity to act out the prejudice or racism as much or more than they believe they're making an accurate comparison. Often, yeah. I guess it'd be more like people are chasing the semantic and aesthetic satisfaction of tribalism by doing it in a fantasy context, but there's not actually that much of a difference cognitively between doing it in a fantasy context and doing it in real life, as evidenced by the fact that, like, the whole joke here is that they're acting like it's the 1950s against black people. Like it's that is the joke, right? But the fact that that's on the table as a joke kind of indicates there's an overlap here, you know? Bosh, there are tons of black and brown people who make clanker memes on TikTok and Instagram. Are they all just innately dispositioned towards racism too? Did I ever say that anyone who says clanker is innately dispositioned towards racism? Jesus, man. It's rough out here, people. It's part of their genetic. Yeah, I am saying it, actually. Every person who has ever said clanker is innately racist, especially if they're black or brown. If they're Latinx, triply so. Yeah. What to that, huh? The subtext is now text. It's out there in the open. I think they should be arrested. Dog, it feels good to talk about shit that isn't news articles. I mean it. I'm sure to some of you this might feel a bit old hat, but for me, I feel like I'm taking a breath. It's justification of a desire to engage in bigotry. It's worth noting, by the way, that like the desire to engage in bigotry of some kind is universal and not necessarily negative. For example, people on the left will frequently regard like the wealthy or the bourgeoisie as a general group to be spoken of negatively. I've talked about this way, or talked in this way about rural people, about people in suburbs, about white people, about Republicans, about Westoids, about every human being but me. People do this all the time about men. I've done it about women. I've done it about Indians. I did it about Indians earlier in this stream. The ability to take a group of people and go like that is innately satisfying. Every human engages in it. The important thing is to understand that like not all are created equal, right? I really think it's that simple. Like my issue has never been with like people making tetchy jokes, I guess. It's always been like you're dumb if you can't tell the difference between doing it about men or about women or about like people in rural America versus Indians. Like, just, I'm not saying you can't. You can. I don't give a shit. But you do have to know what you're doing. I just want people to be cognizant of the, you know, the meaning of their statements. That's all. Aren't humans inherently tribalistic? Yeah, and I think that I think that it is satisfying to you know, gesture and make broad comments. I just think that people should do it responsibly and with some degree of you know, self-awareness. That's all. Not just self-awareness, but like know what you're doing. And there is a huge difference between me waving my hand and going like 50% of the time when a white supremacist posts on Twitter, you can guess they're Indian, which is funny and true. And a bunch of other comments you could make about Indian people broadly. In my opinion, the big differentiator, like the big line that really defines whether or not you're on the good or the bad side of that kind of behavior, is essentialism. And I've said this a million times. If you think people are just innately like how they are, or they're just like that or whatever, that to me is almost always like the sign that it's like actual bigotry, not broad performative tribalist bigotry or sort of like gesturing in a direction or whatever, but like actual cemented cognitive bigotry. Whereas if you engage with it, you know, as for what it is, which is a set of sort of aesthetic and social signifiers describing temporal concepts, you know, socioeconomic circumstances that can shift. You said earlier these terms aren't a satirization of slurs. I mean, they can be. Satire isn't like a term can't be satire. Satire is an intent of a person who's communicating. And I'm asking unironically why this and that video can't be seen as satire, as the absurd idea of being back to Jim Crow for robots. They can be. When I said that the term clanker isn't satire, I meant the term. Like, the term is not innately satirical. People just use it flippantly. These videos are obviously satirical. I don't think they're that funny. Like, there's not as much of a joke to them. It's literally just like, what if we acted like segregationist white people in the 1950s, but it's to robots instead? I guess that itself is a joke premise, right? But to me, what it seems more like is a naked effort to, or like a naked attempt to capture the aesthetic satiation of performative bigotry. What if clanker was the N-word? You're so far behind this discussion. You're like an hour out. Isn't the satire? Okay, what's the satire? Like, what is the satire? What is the satirized element? What is the commentary? It's mocking 50s America? Is that really what you think the kick is? You really think people are watching these videos and the takeaway they're getting from that is, man, I'm glad I don't live in 50s America. That time was backwards. You really think that's what people are getting from this? Whatever. It's subjective. I'm not gonna argue interpretation over this. Intelligent Donkey, I really don't think that shit has anything to do with AI. Like, at all. I genuinely don't think I have ever seen people clanker posting on the timeline aligning with people being anti-AI. In fact, the anti-AI people are usually lefties who find the clanker stuff to be like really distasteful because it's just a bunch of white children imitating racism. Oh, come on, yes it is. No, it's not. Also, it doesn't even make sense because clanker means robot. AI isn't that. It doesn't even make sense. You really see like Chat GPT or Grok and you think clanker? That doesn't even work. That would be like maybe the walking Tesla bots because those are mechanical. It doesn't even make sense. Well, I don't give a shit about that, Youngtrey. Linguistic prescriptivist here. I just know for a fact that right now I'm arguing with the world's least socially competent 17-year-old white children, and I don't like it. I'm not happy about it. I'm not having my personal experiences argued against right now. Like, listen, if you want to say it, say it. I don't care. Quit annoying me, okay? Jesus Christ. I'm not white. Oh, yeah? Congratulations. You're slightly more likely to be approved for a mortgage now.